Hi guys, it's Maisie from Sholo Public Library, and today we're bringing you a very special episode of Gardening 101 that's going to be all about tree grafting. We're inside a greenhouse at Christopher's Garden Nursery up in Lakeside, and Christopher's going to be teaching the class today, so let's get right to it.
Welcome. Glad you guys came. This is a facet, I guess, of the business that not a lot of people do or know about, and I have to tell you that I'm not proficient in all aspects of grafting. There's budding and there's cleft grafts. I do kind of an archaic graft that is very, very functional. It works real well, and I graft more than not apple trees. I've grafted pear trees. And I can kind of, I'll grab some props and kind of show you some of the post grafts from last year. But there's a little bit to it. Starting out right here, this is a rootstock. I use a Russian rootstock called like Anakova, and it's a real cold weather rootstock, so it handles cold real well. But there's a myriad of different rootstocks on the market as for apple trees. There's all of the Morton Mollis, MM111, MM106, you know, they have all numbers to them, and they have different tendencies. Each rootstock, some will be restricting root systems that will take and will dwarf your tree over time because it's restricting, and the tree doesn't grow quite as fast. This is a standard rootstock, so it's cold weather rootstock, so the tree's going to get to be a big tree. It's not a restricting rootstock. Right off the hop, there's a couple of things that I want to kind of show you. This is not real technical. I have a cheap old bag full of X-Acto knives that you can get at Harbor Freight, Lowe's, Home Depot, any place, and that's what I graft with. It has a real fine blade, and this is kind of a cool tool. I found this at a trade show, and it cuts a perfect U. You can take that and cut a U, and then you take your scion, which is your grafting wood, and you cut another U, and they splice together real well. And look, they look beautiful. I don't have success with it. I will have, probably 40-50% success using this tool, and I'll have 80% success grafting with just the old, standby X-Acto knife. This is an old heirloom apple. This is a Grimes Golden. You probably rarely find, Grimes Golden anymore. It was the precursor to the Yellow Delicious, the Golden Delicious. And around here I have multiple trees that I kind of hide. I'll put pink tags on them so they don't sell, just because it's old heirloom wood, and I can take scions from this and graft and make new trees. This is perfect. Oftentimes when you get a water sport that comes off the side, that's great grafting wood, and it's more about the diameter of the wood. Okay. You don't want to get a big old, you're not going to cut a chunk off of a tree like that. You're going to take some small wood because the rootstock is small. And the real key to this whole thing is once I make these cuts, I'll show you, but you have to attach cambium to cambium. Right underneath the bark of a tree or the rootstock is the layer of cells. It's the cambium layer of cells. It's the heart of a plant, and you have to match cambium to cambium. Very important. You get it off just a little bit, the graft will not take. So it's very important to make sure that those match up real well. Okay, I'm going to stop right there, and I'm going to actually start in and show you. There's a lot of grafting tapes on the market, and this is one that's inexpensive, but I don't like it. You can get this for 14 bucks a roll. A.M. Leonard online has this, but they also have this. This is a buddy tape, and it comes out of Japan. It's probably about $32 a roll. But it's the cat's pajamas. It's take a look at the difference, and I'll hand some of this around so you guys can all feel it, play with it.
Buddy tape?
Buddy tape.
Thanks, buddy.
There you go. Everybody needs to see this.
It's definitely stronger.
Well, there's some real, I'll show you the tricks to this. There you go, you got it? Here. So, okay. The difference, take a look at the difference in this. Look at this tape.
Oh, wow.
And it has a much better seal. So this, the cheap tape is waxed, and see the difference? It's stiffer. It doesn't stick like this buddy tape, and that's really, this is a huge factor in this deal. Now you can take grafting wax and seal your graft. You can wrap them with gauze and put grafting wax tape or grafting wax around it and seal those things. But this is so slick and so simple. I'm going to go right ahead and just kind of show you how to graft here. This is the basic the rootstock that I'm going to use. So, and I'll grow these for a year, but I'll come in. And another tool is a good pair of pruners. Not a low-end pair. I use a Felco 2, which is, for the average person, probably too expensive. These are about 80 bucks a pair, but I've had them forever. The nice thing about this is you can replace the blades in these. And they're just like, I've cut the tip of my finger off a couple of times because I have a terrible tendency of throwing my finger out when I'm pruning, and I've nipped my finger off many a time because they're like a razor blade. Now, the purest technical deal, I should have taken and washed my pruners with alcohol and cleaned them. As you can see, I'm a true professional. They're dirty from making cuttings yesterday, and we're going to go ahead and graft anyhow. So, and I just go in, cut, smooth for the camera here. Basically, make a good clean cut. The top of that tree is a moot point. Chuck it, throw it away. And so then you'll take the scion wood and I'll take just an X-Acto knife and I'll take and I'll wedge it. So you have right along that edge, that bark is your cambium layer, okay? And you take your rootstock and you put a split. Everybody can get close if you want to see this real close here. And you want to thin this out. And oftentimes if there's any tags, I'll just cut those tag ends off. And that's it. Take your knife, you split that wood open, you slide the scion in, and very technical, you have to match cambium to cambium. You have to get in there and make sure that edge is on the edge of the bark of this. Pardon me? Okay, and if you're off, let's say, see this side is not, that's okay. I'm trying to graft this cambium on this side. Does that make sense? And if you were to do that, if you were to put that scion away from the edge like that, it'll never graft. If it's right on the edge here, that's perfect. And then you take the old buddy tape and you stretch it. I'll stretch one side, it's kind of sticky. Stretch it. Stretch it. And you have to kind of hold your finger and make sure that those edges stay in place through this, because you don't want that thing to wiggle off. The main crux of this is that you don't want dehydration. You don't want that graft to dry out in there. So by sealing it with this tape, you're holding all that moisture in. The rootstock, you're going to bring it in. I'll throw it in a greenhouse here, and it's going to start warming up, and it's going to start pumping, fluids up and keeping this thing hydrated. And then probably it's going to take 4 to 6 weeks. You'll start seeing these buds eyeing, and they'll start popping out. And then you know that the cells are starting to graft. It's no different than human cells. You're grafting a cut, you're grafting your cells back together again. So, and I usually take, and I'll do this multiple times. Now here's the deal too. Hold your finger on that graft so that when you come up, you don't move that scion off of the. And you just kind of pack it down and seal it. That's your final product right there. And I'll take and I'll go stick them back, and I'll hide grafts so that customers and employees don't knock them, because you can't hit them. If you just knock it off just a little bit, party's over. It won't adhere. This is actually, believe it or not, see this big knot right here? This is a tree that I grafted personally years ago. And so there's your knot, that's your rootstock, and then this is good fruiting wood up above. And now you can take, on your scions, you could take, and let's just use this hypothetically, you can take and you can actually graft. You would have to kind of seal that tip so it doesn't dehydrate. You don't have to have the apical tip. You can graft with, middle wood also. The only caveat to that is I like to graft with the apical tips, because they'll take off and go, and you're going to get a big trunk before I cut the head out of it and splay that tree. So from a nurseryman standpoint, I want that apical tip. But you could take a wood without an apical tip and graft, and what you're going to get is a starred growth, which isn't bad. You could just absolutely keep your tree pruned more like a bushy looking tree. But the fun thing is you can take down the road, once you graft a tree like this, and you can come in and you can splice branches onto a tree and form a multiple trunked tree or multiple branch tree. One branch will be yellow, one branch will be red. You'll have different flavors of apples onto a tree, and it is not a gimmick. It works fine. I've got them all over my backyard, the absent-minded professor, and I have branches of snow apples hanging off of yellow delicious trees, and it's just kind of fun. So that's grafting 101. The nice thing is that if you have rootstock, you can make all kinds of different flavors of trees in your backyard. And I've grafted, I've got a brother in Arkansas, and he sent me some, I had pear rootstock. I had a bunch of pear rootstock around here, and he has a tree that's kind of unique. It's kind of like a big Asian pear, and it's real juicy and watery, and they don't keep worth beans, but they're phenomenal. And I called him up and I said, send me some of that scion wood. And he FedExed me wood, and long and the short is I have one growing in my mother-in-law's backyard right now, and it's wood off my brother's tree in Arkansas. So you can take trees from across the country and reproduce. You could take a branch right here, cut it, split it, wrap it, and that's what I've done with my trees in my backyard. And you'd have, a different flavor of apple coming off a different tree. The beautiful thing about that is it's a space saver. You can get all different flavors of apples, and you don't have to have 10 trees. You've got different branches with things. And another nice feature of that too is that you can put a good pollinator in a tree, and you don't have to have multiple trees. So this was last year. So you can see where I've grafted, and these, look at how they've swollen. These were little thin twigs last year. Now take a look at the advancement. I never take that material off. It's never have to. It's so pliable that it just disappears. Here's case in point. I would have never taken the material off of this, and as they get older, it just disappears. So this particular one is that pear that I'm alluding to for my brother in Arkansas. On the side here I'll have Ted's pear. I have no idea what kind of pear it is. It's a very cool pear though. And then this is this tree right here is a Transcendent crabapple, and it was predicated by Chris Coates. He wanted a crabapple, and I go, gosh darn it, I don't see many of them on the market. The good old, this is the fruiting crabapple, the big one. So I said, you know what, I have a Transcendent in my backyard. And so I made one for her. And that was all because of Chris Coates right there. And there again, I walked in, made a graft, and that's the next deal. Now, from this point on, this year, this growth will keep coming up, and you can get it up to about here, cut it, and she'll star on you and form a nice tree. That's it, guys. And it's not super technical, but like I say, there are a few tricks to the deal. Cambium to cambium, and that buddy tape is huge. This is all a very timing thing. I mark on the calendar March 1 through March 15 is when I graft. You have to keep mollus to mollus, Paris to Paris, prunus to prunus. But that's an interesting deal. The prunus family is peach, plum, almond. So you can graft, that's all prunus. But mollus is apple. You have to keep apple to apple, pear to pear. But prunus you can put on multiple rootstocks. Oftentimes you'll see an almond tree, and it gets a sucker out the bottom, and it's blood red leaves. They're grafting it onto red leaf peach. Oh, yeah. Okay. So I have some rootstock around here, but it's really, I really don't sell it too much to the public. It's more for play toys for Chris. A lot of this stuff that I do around here is the absent-minded professor. I like to play in these greenhouses. Nice thing is I'm putting 4 greenhouses down below. I just bought 4 acres down below at the nursery, and it is my retirement home. I'm going to leave retail to everybody else, and I'm going to go graft, make cuttings. So, a lot of fun, but you can do a lot of stuff with grafting, and it's kind of fun. Any other questions?
No, thank you so much.
You bet.